Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that everything you worked for is gone. Your money is disappearing. Your career is finished. The person you trusted most has walked away. Your friends have stopped calling. And suddenly, the life you thought was completely under your control has collapsed. But here is the question that could change your life. If everything outside you disappeared today, would you still be strong enough to control what remains inside you? Because 2,000 years ago, the Stoics discovered something most people still fail to understand. You can lose money, status, relationships, and comfort without losing yourself. But the moment you surrender control of your mind, you have truly lost everything. This is the story of Adrian, a man who learned that lesson only after life took almost everything from him. At 38, Adrian seemed to have won. He owned a successful company, lived in a beautiful house, drove an expensive car, and had enough money to believe that his difficult years were finally over. Every morning he stood on his balcony, looked across the city, and felt proud. He remembered the small apartment where he had started his business. He remembered working while everyone else slept. He remembered rejection, stress, and years of sacrifice. Now people respected him. People wanted his advice. People called him successful. And slowly, without realizing it, Adrian made a dangerous mistake. Success became who he was. His confidence depended on his company. His happiness depended on his money. His peace depended on people respecting him. He thought he controlled his life, but in reality, his life controlled him, because his peace depended on circumstances remaining exactly as he wanted them. Then one Monday morning, his accountant called. A major client had canceled its contract. Adrian wasn't worried. He had survived problems before. "We'll replace them," he told his team. But they didn't. A few weeks later, another client left. Then another. Revenue started falling while expenses remained. Adrian became desperate. He called investors. He offered discounts. He borrowed money. He worked late into the night. He stopped exercising. He barely slept. He stopped spending time with his wife. And every small problem made him angry. If an employee made a mistake, Adrian shouted. If someone didn't answer his call, he imagined disaster. If a customer complained, he spent hours thinking about it. His body was sitting in an office, but his mind was constantly living inside a future that had not happened yet. What if the business fails? What if I lose everything? What will people think of me? What if I never recover? Adrian believed worrying meant he was preparing himself. But worrying was not preparation. It was suffering. He was experiencing disasters in his imagination before reality had even decided whether they would happen. 3 months later, the company collapsed. Adrian sat in his office while workers carried furniture through the door. Desks disappeared. Computers were packed. The company logo was removed from the wall. He watched everything he had built leave the room piece by piece. When the final worker left, Adrian remained sitting alone. The office was silent. He looked at the empty walls and realized he wasn't only afraid because he had lost money. He was afraid because he no longer knew who he was. For years, when someone asked what he did, he proudly said he owned a company. His business had become his identity. Now the business was gone, and Adrian discovered something painful. He had spent years building a successful company, but almost no time building a strong mind. He returned home expecting comfort, but another loss was waiting. His wife was sitting in the living room with 2 suitcases beside her. Their marriage had been struggling for years. Adrian had always promised things would improve later. After the next deal, after the next successful year, after the company became stable, there was always a later. But life does not promise anyone an unlimited supply of later. His wife looked at him and said, "I can't live like this anymore." Adrian tried to stop her. He promised he would change. He told her he needed her. But before walking away, she said something Adrian would remember for the rest of his life. "You spent years trying to control everything around you, but you never learned how to control yourself." Then she closed the door. Adrian stood alone in the hallway. Within a few months, he sold his expensive car. Then he sold his house. He moved into a small apartment on the other side of the city. The apartment had 1 bedroom, a cheap table, and a window overlooking an old parking lot. Everything around him reminded Adrian of what he had lost. He hated waking up. His first thought every morning was about the past. If only I had acted sooner, if only that client hadn't left, if only I had made different decisions, if only my wife had stayed, if only I could go back. His body lived in today, but his mind was trapped inside yesterday. He replayed the same events again and again, as if thinking about them enough might somehow change them. But the past remained exactly where it was. One rainy afternoon, Adrian left the apartment because he couldn't stand being alone. He walked through the city without knowing where he was going. The rain became heavier, so he entered a small second-hand bookstore. An elderly man sat behind the counter reading. Adrian wandered between the shelves without searching for anything. Then he noticed a small, worn book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He had heard the name before, a Roman emperor. Adrian opened the book and started reading. One idea caught his attention immediately. Some things are within our control, others are not. Adrian almost laughed. His entire life had collapsed, and this ancient philosopher was telling him something that sounded obvious. He started putting the book back when the elderly shopkeeper looked up. "Didn't like it?" Adrian replied. "I think I need something more useful than philosophy." The old man smiled. What happened? Adrian didn't know why, but he told him. He told the stranger about the company, the money, the house, the marriage, the people who disappeared when he failed. The old man listened without interrupting. When Adrian finished, the shopkeeper asked, "Can you change your company's failure today?" Adrian frowned. "No." "Can you return to last year and make different decisions?" "No." "Can you force your wife to come back?" "No." The old man leaned forward. "Then why are you using today to fight yesterday?" Adrian became silent. The old man continued. "A man can lose money without losing his character. He can lose status without losing courage. He can lose comfort without losing dignity. But when he allows things he cannot control to control his mind, then he has truly lost everything." Adrian looked at the little book again. He bought it and returned home. That night, instead of drinking and staring at old photographs, he started reading. He discovered that Marcus Aurelius had been one of the most powerful men in the world, but power had not protected him from suffering. He experienced wars, disease, betrayal, political pressure, and personal loss. The Stoic philosophers were not people who lived comfortable lives. They needed philosophy because life was difficult. Stoicism was not a way to escape pain. It was a way to remain strong while pain existed. Adrian finally understood something he had never understood during his successful years. Maybe strength did not mean creating a world where nothing could hurt you. Maybe real strength meant becoming the kind of person who could face difficult events without being destroyed by them. The next morning, Adrian took a notebook and drew a line down the middle. On one side he wrote, "Things I control." Underneath he wrote, "My actions, my effort, my decisions, my habits, my attitude, my words, my character." On the other side he wrote, "Things I do not control." He wrote, "The past, other people's opinions, the economy, whether someone loves me, whether someone leaves me, other people's decisions, unexpected events, and the final outcome." He stared at the page. Almost everything that had been destroying his peace belonged to the second column. Adrian had spent months trying to control things that had never belonged to him, so he created a simple rule. Whenever something disturbed him, he would ask, "This within my control?" That morning he applied for several jobs. Nobody replied. His old mind immediately said, "Nobody wants you. Your life is finished." Then he stopped. Can I control whether they reply? No. Can I control whether I send another application? Yes. So Adrian sent another application. Later that day, he saw a photograph of his former wife smiling with friends. His chest tightened. His mind immediately started asking, is she happier without me? Has she met someone else? Does she miss me? Then Adrian stopped again. Is this within my control? No. He closed the phone and went outside for a walk. Nothing about his situation had changed. He still had little money. He still didn't have his company. His marriage was still over. But something important had changed. His mind was slowly returning to him. Adrian began understanding acceptance. Acceptance did not mean pretending something wasn't painful. It did not mean giving up. It meant refusing to waste energy fighting reality. If it rains, you can complain about the sky for hours, but the rain will continue. You can either search for shelter, open an umbrella, or accept that you are going to get wet. Reality does not negotiate with your emotions. Adrian also learned to separate pain from suffering. Pain says, "My marriage ended." Suffering says, "I will never be happy again." Pain says, "My company failed." Suffering says, "I am a failure." Pain says, "Someone criticized me." Suffering says, "I need everyone to respect me before I can have peace." An event can happen once, but your mind can make you experience it thousands of times. Adrian's company had failed once, yet every morning he rebuilt the company inside his mind just so he could watch it collapse again. His wife had left once, yet every night he replayed the goodbye. By refusing to release the past, Adrian had been hurting himself long after the original event ended. So he stopped reopening the same wounds. He started waking early again. He exercised every morning. He walked instead of taking taxis. He ate simple food. He stopped buying things he didn't need. At first, these changes happened because he had less money. But eventually, he realized that discomfort itself could become training. The Stoics deliberately practiced discomfort because they knew comfort could make a person fragile. If you can only remain calm when everyone treats you well, then other people control your peace. If you can only remain disciplined when life is easy, then circumstances control your discipline. If you can only feel confident when people praise you, then your confidence belongs to strangers. Adrian started training himself to need less. He learned that a person who needs little is difficult to control. One morning, he sat inside his small apartment and looked around. For months, he had hated that room. Then he remembered another Stoic practice. He imagined losing what he still had. What if I had no apartment? What if I couldn't walk? What if I had no food? What if my health disappeared tomorrow? What if today were my final day? Suddenly, the apartment looked different. It was no longer evidence of failure. It was shelter. His cheap breakfast was no longer embarrassing. It was food. His ordinary body was no longer something he ignored. It was alive. Nothing outside Adrian had changed. His attention had changed, and attention changes experience. You can have everything and feel poor if you focus only on what is missing. You can have very little and still experience gratitude if you recognize what remains. A few weeks later, Adrian finally found a job at a logistics company. The salary was much lower than what he once earned. His manager was almost 10 years younger than him. On the first day, the young manager slowly explained simple tasks. Adrian's pride immediately reacted. "Do you know who I used to be? I owned a company. I managed people before you finished university." He almost said the words. Then he remembered his notebook. "Is my manager's age within my control? No. Is his opinion of me within my control? No. Is my behavior within my control? Yes." Adrian listened quietly. He learned. He completed the work. When he went home that night, he felt something he had not felt in months. Not pride. Peace. The next day, a coworker criticized his work. Adrian immediately wanted to defend himself. Then he asked another question. Is the criticism true? Part of it was. So Adrian corrected the mistake. The rest was exaggerated. So he ignored it. That evening, he wrote in his notebook, "If criticism is true, learn from it. If it is false, why allow it to disturb you?" Soon, every difficulty became training. Traffic trained patience. Difficult coworkers trained self-control. Criticism trained humility. Uncertainty trained courage. Failure trained resilience. Adrian stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" He started asking, "What can this teach me?" Months passed. One afternoon, a major shipment was sent to the wrong location. An important customer became furious. Employees began blaming each other. The office became chaotic. Adrian watched everyone panic, and for a moment, he saw his former self. He stood up and calmly said, "The mistake already happened. Blaming each other will not move the shipment. What can we control now?" The room became quiet. Adrian contacted the delivery team. He called the customer himself. He admitted the mistake without excuses. He arranged another shipment, He stayed late until the situation was solved. The customer remained with the company. His manager later asked, "How did you stay so calm?" Adrian replied, "Because anger couldn't move the shipment." It sounded like a simple sentence, but Adrian knew how much pain had been required to understand it. Anger often feels powerful because it creates energy, but uncontrolled anger usually steals the clarity needed to solve the problem. A year after discovering Stoicism, Adrian returned to the bookstore. The elderly shopkeeper was still sitting behind the counter. Adrian placed his worn copy of Meditations on the table. The pages were filled with notes. The old man smiled. "Did it help?" Adrian said. "It didn't give my old life back. It wasn't supposed to." Adrian smiled. "No, it gave me something better. It gave me control of myself." The old man nodded. Then he said, "Remember, philosophy is easy when life is calm. The real examination begins when life gives you another reason to become angry." A few weeks later, that examination arrived. Adrian received a message from Daniel, his former business partner. During the company's collapse, Daniel had disappeared when Adrian needed him most. He protected his own money and left Adrian to face creditors and employees alone. Adrian had hated him for months. The message said, "Can we meet?" Adrian almost deleted it, but eventually he agreed. They met inside a quiet cafe. Daniel looked nervous. He apologized. He admitted that fear had made him selfish. "I abandoned you," Daniel said. "I know what I did was wrong." Adrian felt the old anger returning. His mind prepared 100 accusations. He wanted Daniel to understand exactly how much pain he had caused. Then Adrian remembered the question that had changed him. What is within my control right now? Daniel's past behavior? No. Daniel's guilt? No. Adrian's character? Yes. Then he asked himself one more question. What kind of man do I want to be? He looked at Daniel and said, "What you did hurt me. I can't pretend it didn't, but I also can't change it, and I don't want to spend another year carrying it." Adrian forgave him. Not because Daniel had done nothing wrong, but because Adrian understood that resentment is another form of attachment. Forgiveness does not change yesterday. It stops yesterday from owning tomorrow. Years passed. Adrian was promoted. Then he was promoted again. He started helping small businesses during his free time. Eventually, people began paying him for advice, but his advice had changed. In the past, he would have spoken almost entirely about money, growth, and competition. Now he spoke about discipline, judgment, patience, responsibility, and character. He told people, failure can hurt you, but success can deceive you. When life is easy, you may think you are strong because nothing is testing you. Real character appears when life refuses to cooperate. One day, Adrian was invited to speak to a group of university students. After the talk, a young man asked, "What was the greatest lesson you learned from losing your company?" Adrian paused. There were many business lessons he could have mentioned. Don't depend on one client. Keep emergency reserves. Control expenses. Prepare for difficult years. But none of those was the greatest lesson. He looked across the room and said, "I spent the first half of my life trying to build a world where nothing could hurt me. I thought enough money would protect me, enough success would protect me, enough planning would protect me. But there is no such world. People can leave. Businesses can fail. Markets can change. Your health can change. People can betray you. Your plans can collapse even when you do everything correctly." Then Adrian said, "Stoicism taught me not to build a life where nothing goes wrong. It taught me to build a mind capable of handling things going wrong." Years later, Adrian built another company. It became more successful than the first. Once again, he had money, employees, and a beautiful home. But success felt different this time. He enjoyed it without allowing it to own him. He knew everything could change. He reminded himself regularly, the company is temporary. Money is temporary. Status is temporary. My body is temporary. Even my life is temporary. This was not pessimism. It was freedom. Because Adrian had learned Memento Mori. Remember that you will die. Most people avoid thinking about death because it makes them uncomfortable. The Stoics remembered death because it reminded them to live. If you knew your life was short, would you spend 3 days angry, because someone insulted you? Would you spend years worrying about strangers' opinions? Would you keep delaying the work that matters to you? Would you refuse to forgive someone because your pride wants to win? One day, you will experience your final morning, your final conversation, your final meal, your final sunset. You probably will not know which one is final while it is happening. That is why ordinary moments deserve your attention. One morning, Adrian stood on the balcony of his new home looking across the city. The view was even more beautiful than the one he had lost years earlier. But Adrian no longer thought, "I own this. This proves I am successful." Instead, he thought, "I get to experience this today." That difference changed everything. Ownership says, "This must remain mine." Gratitude says, "This is here today, and I will appreciate it while it lasts." Maybe you are watching this during your own difficult season. Maybe someone left you. Maybe you lost money. Maybe a business failed. Maybe a friend betrayed you. Maybe people you helped disappeared when you needed them. Maybe your future looks nothing like the future you imagined. You may not control what happened, but you still control your next response. You control whether you get up. You control whether you learn. You control whether you remain disciplined. You control whether pain makes you bitter or wiser. You cannot change yesterday, but you can stop giving yesterday permission to destroy today. Tomorrow morning, take a sheet of paper. Draw a line down the middle. On one side write, "What I control." On the other side write, "What I do not control." Be completely honest. You may discover that most of your anxiety belongs to the second side. You are worrying about what people think. You are angry about something someone already did. You are afraid of an outcome that has not happened. You are trying to control people, relationships, markets, luck, timing, and circumstances. Meanwhile, you are neglecting what truly belongs to you: your habits, your effort, your discipline, your judgment, your attention, your character. Stop trying to control the ocean. Learn to control the ship. Stoicism does not promise that storms will disappear. It teaches you how to become a stronger sailor. And Stoicism does not mean becoming emotionless. The Stoics felt fear, anger, love, sadness, grief, and disappointment. The goal is not to stop feeling. The goal is to stop becoming a slave to every feeling. There is a difference between feeling anger and allowing anger to choose your words. There is a difference between experiencing fear and allowing fear to choose your future. There is a difference between feeling sadness and deciding sadness is your identity. You are allowed to feel the storm. You simply do not have to become the storm. When someone insults you, remember that their words belong to them, but your response belongs to you. When you fail, learn. When someone leaves, let their decision belong to them. When success arrives, enjoy it without worshiping it. When criticism arrives, examine it without allowing it to define you. When life becomes uncertain, remember that uncertainty has always existed. Adrian spent years believing peace would arrive when he finally controlled everything around him. Instead, peace arrived when he stopped trying to control what never belonged to him. The less energy you waste fighting the uncontrollable, the more energy you have for what truly matters: your choices, your actions, your discipline, your character. Life may take your comfort. It may take your money. It may take your status. It may take relationships or opportunities. But while you are alive, one territory remains yours: your mind. Guard it carefully. Do not hand it to an insult. Do not hand it to fear. Do not hand it to failure. Do not hand it to another person's opinion. And do not hand it to the past. The next time life gives you something you did not expect, do not immediately ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask, "What can this train in me?" Maybe patience, maybe courage, maybe discipline, maybe humility, maybe acceptance, maybe self-control. Every difficult moment can become training if you decide to use it that way. A person who requires life to remain easy will always be fragile because life never promised ease. But a person who learns to remain steady during difficulty becomes extremely difficult to defeat. So remember Adrian's story. You do not need perfect circumstances before you become stronger. You do not need everyone to understand you. You do not need yesterday to change. You do not need every plan to succeed. Start where you are. Control what belongs to you. Release what does not. Do the next right thing. Then do it again tomorrow. And maybe one day, you will look back at the moment you thought destroyed your life and realize that it was actually the moment that forced you to discover your real strength. Because sometimes losing what you thought you needed reveals what can never truly be taken from you. Your ability to choose your response, your ability to rebuild, your ability to remain honorable when others are not, your ability to stand up one more time. That is real power, that is real freedom, and that is the Stoic way.